after a year, Deat and Potato Talk is back because I am unemployed. What the fuck was that noise, Potato?
I was clapping. I did.
That's not a clap. What the fuck is
That's
that?
an insane sound. You
That
fucking
is,
slime
I mean,
whistle.
it's an impressive sound. I'm proud of you. I'm not going to put you down for it.
I just whistled and I whistled and clapped 3 times. Like
There is no, the clap is not picked up at all. I think I just heard one clap now. That's the first clap I've ever heard. It's just a really solid whistle. It's a good whistle, man.
It's good. It's a good whistle, man.
I don't compliment you enough. I will give you this compliment. You better cherish it. If you throw it back in my face, I will hunt you down to the end of the earth.
oh, I don't think I want to be hunted down.
Well, you better just accept it right now.
I accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
This is a great introduction.
It is a great introduction. I mean, I really like to just introduce myself under the pretense of threat. I like to make people feel off. I like to make people. I you know how like Donald Trump will walk into the room and he's like, "Oh, I just got to do like art of the deal shit."
Mm-hmm.
I do that, except I just stabbed the nearest person.
Like prison.
Yeah, no, exactly like prison, except it's an elementary school.
Yep.
Oh, let me get the timer set. So
we're not here. We haven't returned to talk about comic book shit, though we were going to, but then a hurricane hit my town, and then we weren't able to record anything. Me and Potato were supposed to talk about Constantine. That didn't happen. So Grant was like, "Did you watch The Substance yet?" And then he suggested we should record a podcast on The Substance. Here we are. So we're going to talk about the new film, The Substance, directed by Coralie. I almost said something very, very mean. Fargiat.
Yeah, her last
Coralie Fargiat.
Really tempting a slip of the tongue, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Like not even throwing shade at her. I mean, I know I just said the B word, but that's like jovial. She's a very promising director. But I was noticing that. I'm like, ooh, that is not made for an English tongue. That is a mean last name.
Yeah, I've seen her first film, Revenge, and it's pretty good. It's not as good as this one, and it has a completely different tone.
Actually, I went in completely blind. I had not seen any work by her. This is the first thing I'd seen. My brother said, you have to watch this. And I looked up nothing about it. I just showed up to the theater with him, and we just watched it. So that's my exposure to the film. What about you, Potato?
I watched it because I was asked to watch it.
Okay, that's fair.
He was asked because this is a podcast.
I'll be perfectly honest. I had no idea what this movie's about, and I didn't know it was a horror movie. Which
hell yeah.
So
I am not good with horror movies. I'll be honest.
Yeah, you were even more oblivious than I was because I knew it was vaguely scary and probably had something to do with a body because her back is sliced open on the poster. So
yep,
fair enough.
Yeah, The Substance is Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid in his finest performance as a creepy producer named Harvey, which is not very subtle, but that goes with a lot of the movie because the movie's as subtle as Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes might be a bit more subtle than how over the top the movie is. Very intentionally so. It's very cartoony, very campy. And it goes for it. It really goes for it. No tongue-in-cheek shit. It's just like we're going into it, and I really liked it about that. It reminded me of Pain and Gain, the Michael Bay film, a lot, especially during the shots of the Pump It Up show.
I will say that I think a good place to start from, since it's just an easy way to talk about films or just get an idea about how we're qualifying it, is just what would we give it as a rating? And I know some people find ratings reductive, but it's just a good catalyst. So what would you rate?
We could do that. I usually do the ratings at the end because it's like we're evaluating it together.
I kind of want to work backwards from that because I feel like the things I would say it would be very hard necessarily to qualify because I think on any technical level I can try and think of, like as close to objective as you can get about a film, talking about how good cinematography is, how good performances are, how good, right? The quality of something, just how talented the artists are. This movie is phenomenal. It's incredibly well made. It's incredibly bold, but the substance of it, if you'll allow me to just do a funny pun, is something that I feel very conflicted about, I think. So I actually would like to work backwards, which is
I'm
saying,
mildly conflicted as well, but I think overall the movie is great. I had a blast with it. I give it an 8 out of 10. That might change after we record this. Potato, what do you give it? A hamstring? You give it a nice old fat lady out of 10?
I saw, there was like a couple scenes where I saw like the main girl's ass. That was pretty cool.
a
I guess
couple of scenes. That was like half the movie.
Half the
it's
movie's
true.
butt shots.
Yeah, it's true. Half the movie was.
I will say this: I think it's very bold to make a movie where like at least half of it, maybe even 3/4 of it, you can just have your cock in your hand.
Oh, yeah, especially at the end of the movie.
Well, yeah, that was the best part. That was when it really kicked in for me.
Yeah, that's. I couldn't really hold back.
It's great. It's
I'd
Yeah, at
give it
that
like
point, I mean, I started calling the main characters like really like mean names. I kind of got too. It was really bad because I was in a theater and it was not like I was not by myself.
Yeah, you did a big whistle when she turned into a Frank Henenlotter head at the end.
No, that was right when when the people sitting in the row below me got very upset. No, but in all seriousness, I think I personally would give it. I can't decide between a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. So that's why I wanted to start there, because I do think that it sort of introduced, like, I do like the movie and I do think very positively of it in a lot of aspects, but there's other things that I'm very torn on.
Movie of the year? No, I don't.
No.
I don't think it's movie of the year, but it's very it's very entertaining. It's 2.5 hours long, and it does not feel boring in the slightest.
No.
It's edited. I mean, it's edited like a Michael Bay movie, where it's just is pretty rapid, and it's so the editing is so fucking funny. And that funniness is, it gets flipped on its head when it gets to like the disturbing scenes, like when she's pulling the teeth out of her face. Like, it's edited like the same way a lot of like when Dennis Quaid's eating the shrimp and it's just disgusting. It's edited kind of with the same rhythm, and it takes what's kind of what is a gross funny scene and turns into a gross, very painful to watch scene.
Yeah, I think it as a satire, not talking about like the content of the satire, it is a very excellent example. It plays in very much to like heightening all of the like gross and uncomfortable things about daily interactions, which very puts you into the same on edge headspace as the character. And I again the function of satire often is not necessarily for the plot to make sense or the character's motivations to be nuanced, but to illustrate very firmly and directly the message the director is going for. And in that sense, honestly, I think there's an argument to be made that the inspirations drawing on, like Cronenberg, Carpenter, things like that, right?
I think Kubrick and Hitchcock are also in there too.
Indeed.
I think it's because it's a horror movie and it goes in that direction at the end. You can kind of throw away the other director's influences, but I think Vertigo would be a very close example of something that's taken from, because Vertigo is not a horror movie. It's barely even a thriller, but it has the same thing where everything's kind of heightened and dreamlike, and it's very clear. It's like, this ain't the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with this movie. It's like, this does not exist in the real world. It makes it pretty fucking clear. The opening like sequence with the star, where it's just this is not reality.
Yeah, what I really liked about that is that we've had just how boldly it leans into it. I think it adds a very interesting element to a lot of the inspirations she's pulling from that you don't typically see from those directors. They play it very straight and the strength of the punches they refuse to pull is reinforced by the fact that it feels very grounded, right? Like you watched Videodrome and it feels like something real very quickly becoming a nightmare. But when
Yeah.
you watch this, it feels like a nightmare becoming inescapable. It's very
Oh, it's very like bleak at the end
mm-hmm.
for me, where she's like, oh yeah, there's no escaping. That was the scene of the movie. Potato, you might feel the same. The scene of the movie that fucked with me the most was when she's supposed to go on the date with the guy, and she just like she fucking can't. She's just like, I gotta go back. I gotta go back. I gotta go back. I gotta go back to Margaret Qualley to Sue.
That was
And
I think
then
that actually was my favorite scene in the movie, to be honest.
yeah, when she does the big breakdown where she's fucking her makeup up and shit.
Yeah. Um I think to touch further on the dreamlike quality you're getting at, I think the thing that reinforced it the most in my mind was the set design and the props.
Yeah.
Because there's everything from stuff like the 1940s all the way up until the present day, and it's kind of weird watching because you're like, what date, what time is this set in?
Yeah. I
Because
like that.
yeah, because it feels like an 80s TV show being made in the modern era, and something about that just it doesn't make sense, but that's very clearly not the point, right?
Yes.
Like
Which I
cable
mean,
television doesn't actually like matter right now, but again,
yeah.
like that aspect of it, I am completely on board with. It makes perfect sense, I think, for the genre she's going for.
I actually noticed something I think I kind of think about two things. I will say one that you'd recognize and one Potato would know. Okay, Dark Knight, Batman Dark Knight Returns. Potato, put that in your brain. Then Network. So when those two pieces are analyzed, it's they're very much about the television era, the network television era,
Uh-huh.
your talk shows, shit like that. But it's so potent about what it's about and how it also references stuff from the past of how discourse and propaganda is put out that it's like recognizable to us in the future. It's like, well, this is like in network. The guy's show is basically just it's Alex Jones now, uh, and with Batman Dark Knight Returns, it's basically just a bunch of people on talk. It would be podcasts now, having their shitty little political discussions. And so it's taking that, which we can recognize now in retrospect is also still being relevant while being an antiquated medium. And then doing that, looking where Substance is a film made today, looking back and using the antiquated mediums to illustrate what is relevant now.
Yeah.
Like it would have been very hack to to make it fucking Instagram or an Instagram equivalent or
It would have
use like
sucked.
that
It would have
type of
been
stuff.
terrible. It just
That'd
would
be
have been
awful.
terrible. It would have been so obnoxious. It would have been so infuriating. And I really respect it struck a very good balance between obviously including the implications of modern technology, like and how we communicate and that speed at which is happening, right? But not being caught in it. Like I love that like when they show the text, they just show the phone, shit like
Yes.
it just
Yeah.
feels more what's the word I'm looking for? Is it diegetic? Is that the word I'm looking for?
The diegetic.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to check. It feels very it just makes sense. It really doesn't get in your face about it, and I respect that. Potato, actually, I feel bad because we really have not been giving you any space to jump in. Is there anything that you want to bring up?
Oh, yeah, my apologies. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say, like that you guys haven't already said. I
We talk about the
enjoyed it a
visuals.
lot. Yeah, the
I
visual.
actually,
Yeah, the visuals looks fucking
oh,
amazing. I love the visuals. It's everything
yeah, I
so.
didn't,
It
I
looks
didn't mean to
insane.
cut off.
It does.
I actually wanted to ask, do you think it would be a good time to talk about what we think of the actual message that it's going for, or would we like to compliment more?
I would like to continue talking about the visuals because I have very mixed opinions about what the message is.
Indeed, I'm in the exact same place. So yeah, let's talk about the visuals more.
I think it's a okay. Let's talk about this. So the main problem with us in analyzing this film is we're all dudes.
Indeed.
And I'm not saying this in a woke way, but like this is a very feminine film. This would be like three bitches talking about I would say Heat. Probably my first go-to, but some of this especially a masculine piece.
Yeah.
This is a feminine piece. It's primarily acted by two women, and then it's directed by a woman, and it's very much about the feminine struggle with beauty standards, masks, old age, the effect of aging.
Yeah.
And I think at the end, my interpretation is that it's very much it's critiquing the female's own standard of beauty and not completely the world's standard.
That is actually,
and how feeding into that ideal, that idea is overall just destructive and should not be enforced. That's what I get from the ending, which is when she turns into the fucking monster from what's the movie? Brain Dead? Not Brain Dead. Basket Case. She
yeah,
turns it literally looks like the guy from Basket Case.
Yeah, I was
Then she melts
with my
on
friend
the star.
the movie, actually, yeah, because it's very close to Basket Case, in visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank Henenlotter. So what people attribute to Cronenberg, which I mean, this should be attributed to Cronenberg. Frank Henenlotter was doing before Cronenberg was doing the Cronenberg stuff.
Yeah.
Which is that the tumor monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Henenlotter did Frankenhooker.
Yeah.
Potato. That's the great Frankenhooker.
I mean, to just jump in right on the point we're going at, that would be my only serious objection to the actual presentation of the plot. I think she was very eager to point out the role that the male influence has on shaping a very toxic culture for women as they age.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it is perhaps incomplete not to acknowledge the role that of women in that exact sort of thing. And that's the only, I don't even wish that was a major focus of the film, because I don't necessarily think the point was who was doing it, and more so the turmoil it inflicts on a person.
Yeah.
But I had wished that was another dimension that could come up, because that's the one thing that I worry could date the film and make it feel more like a product of our time as opposed to perfectly.
Well, another similar film in terms of messaging is Robert Zemeckis' Death Becomes Her, and that does feature the role women play in the beauty standard.
The one I was thinking of, and it's not necessarily a film about beauty standard, but it's a film about how a performer can be caught up in a completely toxic culture, and I think it does a very good job of showing how everyone plays into it, was Black Swan. And I don't know if that's a real random one to compare it to, or if that makes sense.
I mean, this one also has bones being transformed and shit.
Mm-hmm. And fingernails and all that sort of shit. Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to say is that the one thing that I worry is lost in this film that very obviously aggressively and zealously jumps into body horror. The one thing that I worry, that I think the greatest body horror films that have utilized that as a cinematic element have had, is that you don't think that the characters are just being cruelly abused and purely a victim. I do like films like Videodrome. I do like films like Akira. I'll mention, since it's animated, but it's still obviously body horror, where it feels like the characters' motivations have just as much to do with how they're spiraling down, and they very aggressively contribute to it. And I think that this film, while obviously you can very easily articulate how this film also does that,
it very much does that. That's what half the movie's dedicated to.
Exactly. But I think that at the same time, if we hone in just on Demi Moore's character, I do worry that the satire at times flirts with just being more sadistic towards her than like she truly deserved what happened to her. Her flaws were
Right. That is my thing. Is like she very much. I don't really think she deserves the horrible fate.
yeah.
That last 30 minutes is it's so much fun, but like
It
I don't
hurts
think
though.
she
It
should
really
have
does
became a
hurt.
big blob thing.
a big blob.
Yeah,
That one
and
was
like
fucking
I
nasty.
don't want to be
It
dense.
was disgust. It literally got on my skin looking at it. I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh, this is
I was so uncomfortable watching that. I think it was getting at levels where like like the ending of Whiplash, where it's like, oh my god, I can't even fucking stare at the screen right now. This is so like I want to
intense.
crawl into my It was that intense, and obviously like the point it's literally proving is that this standard that they have shouldn't be done to anybody, right? And it's cruel and unusual, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, I think with gore, and that's what it is, gore. That you have to be sensitive in that it very easily can become snuff, and that's really the problem with most body horror films. It's very rare to find one that threads that line. And I think this film threads that line. I really do. I don't want to accuse it of falling astray of that. But I will say that I think there was points where it was getting uncomfortably close to just being like, why is this happening to her? This just feels so abnormally cruel, right? It just feels so
Yes.
like I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel I watching it. There was points where like I felt like it was like I shouldn't be watching it. Like the difference between like like a Videodrome and like a Cannibal Holocaust, right? Whereas like
Yeah.
the film
Yeah.
has a message and it's clearly proving it. And obviously, I won't accuse this film of doing anything like Cannibal Holocaust. I'll put that very transparently out there.
Never seen Cannibal Holocaust
It it's trying to critique the idea of exploitation and exploiting other cultures, right?
while exploiting because
Other
I know.
cultures, yeah. But that's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the angle I want to get at. I just meant that, like, literally in the film, when you watch the film, ignoring the actual production of it, you kind of go like, okay, but this is self-indulgent.
Yeah.
And
I do think this movie's very self-indulgent at the
exactly,
end, and
exactly.
I honestly I loved it. I loved that it really got in very self-indulgent at the end. Uh, just because it gave like a kind of a satisfying payoff for the movie just as a film. Because you get this big bloody action scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very over. It's it's insane. It might be the most insane fucking gore thing I've seen in a movie. Previously, I had was the movie Men, which
Mm-hmm.
the climax of that movie is almost as insane as this. Which is like why I tell people to watch that movie is just because like the ending of that movie is so like you wouldn't expect it to happen. How like gory and over the top and bizarre it gets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Um,
my pick for that would be Tetsuo, the Iron Man, personally.
oh yeah, I haven't seen that one in full. But I do. I mean, I like hyper violence. I like ultra violence. I've often talked to our friend Doc about how I think gore and violence can be used in films in interesting ways
Well,
to display
Mhm.
different emotions, whether it be comical, horrible, awesome, sexual.
I mean, the classic example in my mind that like is super easy to communicate to anyone is Blade Runner, right? Because it's not all throughout that film, but the few moments that it doesn't cut away from in like the final cut, go a long way.
Oh yeah,
In my mind, I wanted to use that kind of as a basis. Like, I think if I had to say personally what I like the most about gore, I'm not drawn to hyper violence. I think I'm drawn to effective, like where it feels like it perfectly facilitates the point. And my only real objection to the substance is that I think it kind of, in its own self-indulgence, even though I think it does wonders for facilitating the intensity of the satire, I worry it muddles where that's coming from, because I don't think this film would work if like the director came out and said, "Oh yeah, I just want to see a bunch of blood on screen," right?
Yeah, because that would be retarded.
It would be retarded, and it's not what she's doing. It's clearly not what she's doing. But I think she got pretty damn close.
Yeah.
She really was pushing the envelope. And so I don't honestly know if my hesitancy towards this is me having an articulate point or me being completely fucking filtered. I will be completely transparent about that. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a line. This is one of the bullshit things I've come up with, which is ultraviolence and hyperviolence. Actually, hyperviolence has been defined in cinematic theory. Ultraviolence is different. I describe ultraviolent films as, like they have Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is a good example. I think any of S. Craig Zahler films are a good example. I kind of think it's in Clockwork Orange a bit, but these like bursts of very pointed graphic violence that punctuate many different emotions in the film. But these Drive.
Yeah,
Drive would
Drive's
be
another
a
one.
great example.
Yeah, Drive's another one where like it's not filled to the brim with gore, but the gore that's in it, first of all, it's very graphic. It's like, well, incredibly effective. It's absolutely
Hyperviolence can serve the same purpose,
Mhm.
but hyperviolence is often more indulgent and more over the top. First time I heard of hyperviolence in cinematic theory was in the book about Takashi Miike that I went through, and he described a lot of Takashi Miike's use of like squirting blood, or like Itchy the Killer as just like it's hyper violence.
Yeah, well,
It's over the top. It's comical,
Mhm.
and it's just like in very much in your face and kind of just ingrained into the film itself.
Yeah, that I think that's a perfect film to pick because I know you love that film, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I enjoy Itchy the Killer. I think Itchy the Killer is a very flawed film, but I think it's a very interesting movie. That movie also has a lot of complex things it's trying to say as well.
And
Which not many Miike's films are really trying to say much. So when there are one that's like there's very much a point in it. You raise your eyebrows like, oh, what's going on here?
It's really funny because I think
because that entire movie's building up to a fight that doesn't happen.
yeah. I think it's useful to bring up Miike because there's actually we can talk about Ichi the Killer in it. But I apologize if this film I'm about to mention either of you have seen. Have either of you seen Visitor Q?
No.
No. Okay. I won't spoil it then, but between Ichi the Killer and Visitor Q, I think you have the intensity of graphic violence and the intensity of just absolute sexual in your face, right? In Visitor Q. I won't say what moments there are, but if you watch the movie, you'll know exactly why I've mentioned it. Both of those are films that I think lose me in that just by how far they go in indulging that, it steps away from the point it's actually trying to stay on.
Yeah.
Even though I don't necessarily know if Visitor Q is a film that has a point per se, but I think it's one of those films like, in that it doesn't have a point. It's trying to be a commentary about existentialism and shit like that, right?
Yeah, random shit. Uh,
I guess it's just that The Substance is such an interesting film to me, and that I think the reason I am as apprehensive as I love it is because it's so intense that
it is so
I
intense.
can love it and hate it. And normally I think if I had seen like a film that would do a plot like this, I'll completely admit my biases. I think if anyone else had made this film with this plot, not even necessarily the same way, but just like with this plot, I would have thought it was much dumber and lacking in content. But just in the intensity and in your face of how much is there is as much of the greatest strength this film has as it's my biggest reservation.
Yeah, I would describe it as a borderline eye bleeder.
Yeah,
Where there's so much going. yeah, there's just so much. It's so intense. So it's so just the wide angle lens close ups on people's faces and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It's
I guess what
it's
feels
great.
what's so what has captivated me so much is that I have to imagine. Well, it's not a perfect comparison because the jump from before and after with the film I'll mention was probably much more radical, but it was probably the closest I think in my lifetime where I've watched new films in theaters that I could get to being like sitting into theater for the first time 1974 and seeing like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Where it's
Hmm.
just like films aren't like this. What the oh my god, right?
Yeah.
That's how I felt watching this. I'm just like, wow, this is like so much. Like I would not expect a film this gory, not only to be getting like a mainstream release, but like people are just talking about it, right?
It made money. It made like triple its budget or
Yeah,
something.
it's very successful, and that's really rare for the genre. That does not typically happen. Even the greatest films in the genre don't typically get that level of acclaim. The larger point in my mind is wondering, first of all, where do you go from here with the director? And second of all, I wonder, do you think this fits more in line with what people expect of the genre, or do you think that it's infusion of really in your face satire might be pushing it into new dimensions?
I think I'd lean towards the latter. It serves a good function. It works well. Um, yeah, I don't know. Because something I kind of want to talk about is, did you listen to that podcast clip I sent you, Grant?
No, I'm sorry.
That it's fucking dumb. So there's two people that are like discussing how the movie homage. So the movie very obviously visually homages Shining,
Yeah, I mean the hallway. I mean that's.
Clockwork Orange,
Mhm.
and there's like one other one. Oh yeah, 2001. 2001. Yeah, they take
Yeah, with that light sequence. That light sequence.
yes.
I was
Uh,
I liked that light sequence, but as much as I love it, this is just me being perfectly petty, and it's not even like a legitimate criticism I'm leveling at the movie. No one's ever going to do it like 2001. That was one of the best sequences ever made in film history.
yeah, it's never
That
going to be
light sequence.
recreated.
I mean, the
Uh,
filmmaking techniques behind that light sequence is actually just phenomenal. But back to what you were saying.
well, they also discuss like them using the Virgo love theme, and then it being like, oh, it's just aesthetic. There's no point to it, or like. But then I was watching the movie, and it's just like, that's a very reactionary and regressive take, in my opinion. When you see
Yeah.
like a movie homage or quote another film, and then just completely write off what's being accomplished. I do. I mean, I do roll my eyes whenever I see like a Shining Carpet homage. Uh,
Yeah.
just
Well,
because it's in everything, but I don't. But that doesn't change the fact that uh, the way it's been watching The Shining is pretty accurate, with the studio
yeah.
being
I-
this
And
this kind of hell.
I actually think that of all the like cannot pronounce that word. I apologize. Homages to The Shining I've seen. This one was probably the most straightforward and not trying to stab you in the eyes with it.
Yeah.
Because your eyes quite literally are drawn to the pictures on the wall, and the red wall and the red carpet. You don't even necessarily think about it for a second. But I remember like when I first saw the hall, I didn't catch it, but then a second time, I'm like, oh,
It's the Shining
yeah.
Shining
And then
Hall.
obviously in the climax when she's coming back down the hall, that's as close as you can get to making the elevator scene without making the elevator scene, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's instead of it being
Do you
blood
think?
coming out of an elevator, it's blood coming out of a giant fucking homunculus.
And it is interesting because at the same time, it's like she also got as close as you can get to doing Carrie without doing Carrie, right? I mean, there's a lot of films you can compare this to, which
There's much more blood than Carrie.
a lot
I'll
more
say
blood than
that.
Carrie. That's true, but it felt like that essentially, but not at the same time. Again, it's really the I think it's very hard because actually with the podcast clip, while I agree with you that it's an incredibly reductive and regressive way to talk about it, I do also kind of have that kind of concern because, like, when you see, like, obviously, like Kubrick, if we just talk about Kubrick for a second, like, none of those things are just flourish. I won't even necessarily be the person who says like every single meticulous detail he ever included his film mattered. But the way he was able to render things was all in service of accomplishing a very exact tone and mood. And I do think that the hyper violence overpowers the homage in the end.
Yeah.
It does just become a detail as opposed to a piece of a canvas that's creating this final image, because there's a centerpiece in it. And actually that was another thing that I kind of struggled with the satire. My only when you have, like, you put like a big word on something, right? You put all these things on it. All the other things on the screen start to become less important. And I don't even necessarily know if that's like an issue. That's a choice. That's how you can either make a film where you want everything to be funneling towards something, or you like, this is what you're paying attention to, right?
Right.
That's another thing where I feel very conflicted about, because it's as like in body horror, I'm so used to like you're searching desperately around the whole set, right, to find what's the freaky thing, right?
Yeah.
Like in Videodrome, you're waiting and suddenly it's the fucking TV, right? You're like, oh my, what the, right?
Yeah. TV's a pussy.
I keep going to Videodrome. I suppose I could name drop like ever Cronenberg.
Hey, Potato, have you seen Videodrome yet?
I have not.
You should.
Hey.
It's literally about a movie. It's literally a movie about a guy who has sex with a TV.
It's very, yeah. No, that's fair. That's completely accurate.
Is it body horror?
Yeah,
Yes.
Cronenberg.
It's not like this movie.
No.
As much as Grant say.
Cronenberg's slow. I mean, Cronenberg eases you into it.
The body horror is that a guy's hand turns into a gun. It's not as disgusting as this.
Well, there's a lot. Okay, I don't want to downplay Cronenberg because this is excessive. I don't think Cronenberg. There's another thing with body horror. I don't think the masters of body horror have ever been excessive.
Yeah.
So it feels very.
That's the thing in Cronenberg's films, is that the body horror, except I guess The Fly. Well, even though The Fly, it doesn't really get into, I'm just gonna say, The Fly. It doesn't really get into what people think about of that movie as until the third act, where he fully turns into the fly monster.
But in this movie's defense too, it does escalate. Like it's not just at one level the entire time. It does amp up the ante, but it just starts higher than you're much used to.
Yeah, it's like an amplifier. It goes dot 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 till eventually you hit 11, and then.
Yeah. But I guess it's really interesting because it's the first time I've seen like a truly excessive gore film that I think thread the line.
Yeah, of course, it's also homaging RoboCop. I haven't seen anybody bring up the fact that it's obviously homaging RoboCop at the very end with the giant sludge monster that falls over and explodes. Like that's very similar to what happens in RoboCop, except it's hit by a car.
Yeah, and RoboCop would be an excellent film to work off of his base, because that's also satire.
It's also a satire. Yeah,
it's also a satire. So there's a lot of satirical elements that would, and it's on. Yeah, it's not a bad comparison at all.
I have seen people bring up Showgirls, but I've only seen the first 40 minutes of Showgirls, so I can't really.
Even seen Showgirls, so I won't bring it up either.
I was like, oh wow, this movie's bad. Okay, this one without a Showgirls.
Yeah. I guess. Can I bring up something that I think is might be a little petty to mention? But it's
does this involve the film we were talking about, or is this a tangent?
The director.
The director? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
This might entirely just be because she hasn't had enough interviews yet. So I will not make any accusation, but I will say that I think the one thing that I noticed, that I was kind of like, oh, huh. The director obviously making a film about like how fucked up it is for like women, to feel insecure about their age. You check her Wikipedia, she doesn't have an exact date listed for her birth, and they don't know her exact age. They give a range of either she's 47 or 48. And I'm like,
Hmm.
But again, I don't.
Women be lying.
I really don't. That's mean. That's a mean thing to bring up. I feel bad. I like to make jokes like that. I obviously open with jokes like that. But in all seriousness, I mean, this is one of the most exciting directors to come out, I think, making films recently.
Yeah. Well, especially with this being a success.
Yeah, especially this being a success. I mean, it feels very in my mind. I mean, I haven't like seen a movie like this where I go like, oh my god, I want to see what this director does next. I really want to see what this director does next. Since like Eggers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think. Can't think of the list. Oh, Julia DeCarno. I think that's her name. She made Titan, which was I absolutely love that movie, and she hasn't made anything since.
Actually, that's another thing. What really excites me is that there's and I don't like to try and like play up the political end of this, but it matter of factly, you don't get a lot of prolific female auteurs.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like when you see like female directors' careers,
okay. What are you saying is in prolific?
Just sheer number of output, how many films they make.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, you don't see that.
When I think of like all of the great
maybe?
filmmakers, I can summon off the top of my head: Ida Lupino, Ellen May, Penelope Sears, right?
Penelope Sears has made a lot of movies, but most of them were studio movies that weren't good.
Yeah, most of them were studio. I mean, she has a bigger career definitely than the other directors I just listed. But then, I mean, you even jump in with I mean, even some of the most acclaimed female filmmakers of all time, like Ackerman, have much more smaller careers when you compare them to like other, just other male directors. But I don't even necessarily want to assert that that's like an inferior thing, because there's a lot of directors who have incredibly tiny careers and they're some of the greatest careers ever, right?
Well, it took her almost a decade in between films for this.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if this success is going to launch her or if she's going to stick to incubating, because it really seems like, and I don't know why, I'm not going to say that like I know why or there's some sort of observation I'm making, but it just quite literally seems that like female directors really like to take their time typically.
Yeah.
And so I that makes me excited that like hopefully the success of this one means she will cook up something incredible. But at the same time, I'm also equally excited about the idea that like maybe the reason something like that happens is that all of the other directors I listed, it just was harder. It was harder back then to get your foot in the door. I'm not going to deny that reality.
Also, she has such a distinct style with this film and the previous film that is more identifiable.
Yep.
I guess.
And,
I guess Sofia Coppola. That'd be another one. She's been able to have a good amount of work.
what's her? How do you say her name? Lynn Ramsey.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. What?
No, she did Ratcatcher and the Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Oh yeah, Lynn Ramsey, I think.
Yeah.
That Joaquin Phoenix movie.
A lot of the best female directors I can think of just have small careers. I'm very interested. I hate using the word small because it sounds dismissive, but I'm just very curious to see where she goes next from this and at what, like how aggressively she attacks it, or how, because like it's as aggressive to go, no, I'm going to cook this, right?
Yeah.
As it is to go, yeah, let's start fucking drowning people, right? Let's start hitting them 1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, again, we'll have to see. I mean, I remember when Uncut Gems came out and was a big hit. It was like, oh yeah, what's where the Safdie's going to do next? And then they do nothing and then break up, and then one decides to direct a movie with The Rock that may or may not get released because of The Rock.
Yeah, but I guess since I've probably exhausted that point, I don't necessarily think I am progressing with it.
Yeah. So, my big thing I wanted to say, Potato Man.
What actually just oh yeah, you go.
Potato Man.
Yeah.
The you know the
I already
what
fuck-
things was it Monstro Zarathustra? What's it called at the end of the movie?
I don't know.
Where it's the two together, the big monster at the end.
You,
You know,
I already know you're gonna ask me.
would you?
What? I the big scary fucking monster in the end. Yeah,
Wouldn't she
no.
explode though?
Yeah, that doesn't seem. It's gonna be all bloody, and I don't want to deal with that.
Okay, what about the Demi Moore head at the end?
No.
No.
No, I mean I
What
I
about
had put her in
old ass Demi Moore?
I'd put her in
Well,
a petri dish and try
now
and
we're
like
talking.
reconstruct her body, but no, I don't think I would.
What did you say, Potato?
Old ass. Now we're talking. Old ass Demi Moore.
That's the thing is she's pretty good for a 61-year-old woman.
That was the other thing I was going to say. That actually the one thing I do think that is a flaw against this movie is that is dwelling on the fact that like, oh, what am I going to do as an actress now that I'm considered past my prime, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but like Demi Moore is quite literally facilitating what you do as an aging actor in this movie.
She's 61.
Yeah.
Well,
Holy
I mean,
First of all, looks
I think that's
incredible.
I think it's part of the text of the film is that she doesn't look that bad for her age, but
Yeah.
you know, they just don't really care.
Yeah, I guess it's the thing.
Well, that's the one thing. The introduction to Harvey is that he's like, "Oh, she won an Oscar what in 1930s?" You know, where he's like, "It's completely like your merits as an actress," which we see. She walks by like a bunch of awards she's won in one shot of the movie.
Yeah,
Is like it doesn't matter.
but see, that's the sort of thing is that the one thing I worry is that because this film is as contemporary as it is trying to encapsulate the whole trajectory of Hollywood. I mean, like now, no one would say that about like Meryl Streep, right? Like no one. I don't actually sincerely think that we live in a time now where like an actress who would accomplish that level of success would go down that route. Like Jane Fonda isn't written off; she's still like working. Right, and Jane Fonda is actually probably the most comparable actress you could have in this entire movie who did even like a comparable career path, right? Comes out the gate swinging with like a bunch of like acclaimed roles, then pivots into like a health guru, right? And then goes back into filmmaking and television and is still a relevantly employed actress. But I don't necessarily think that it would be fairer to just say, "Oh, well, it's not true anymore." First of all, because I'm not in the fucking film industry, I don't know. Second of all, it's just kind of complicated. This is I think a film like this made in the 80s probably would have been much less muddled,
antiquated.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to call this film antiquated because I do think that like it doesn't go too far. It's not like the producer being like, "You're useless now. I'm going to throw you to the right." Like,
I mean, that is kind of what happens in the
it is
movie.
kind of what happens, but like I do think Dennis Quaid, to his credit, I don't know if he's necessarily, I think, one of like the greatest actors of our generation, but I do think that he knows how to make sure an absurd character isn't like, because like you watch him and it's like, yeah, this guy loves his shit, right?
Yes.
Like Dennis Quaid, to his credit, he's like, he knows like the point of playing an asshole is that the asshole loves himself.
It's a great performance.
Yeah, it's an incredible performance, and I think honestly he helps keeping the film from going.
He's the funniest part of the movie.
Yeah, because like I think all of the other male performances in the movie, they're not honestly, they're not important people, so they're just kind of facilitating a joke. So it doesn't matter that they're one note and like they're not really real and there's like no nuance to them. Well, besides like the nurse character, right?
Oh yeah, him.
Yeah, he's relevant. I won't dismiss that character, but besides that, Quaid is actually the one that makes sure to like the hyper satirized scumbag piece of shit mail that they're doing doesn't just feel completely hyperbolic. He's as amped as the movie, but he doesn't go any farther.
Here's the thing I noticed. So I mean, his name's Harvey. It's obviously Harvey Weinstein comparison.
Mm-hmm.
It's never implied or said that he's a sexual predator. He's just like a pervert
Yeah, he's just a
that
piece of shit.
enforces.
That's
He's just
and
like a
that's
shitty, gross guy.
yeah, and that's what I respect. Actually, that's the biggest piece of credit I'll give, and that's the reason like I haven't like just said this film is antiquated or anything, right? If this movie had felt like a Me Too movie, I think I would have felt much more negatively about it. Not that I'm writing off the idea
It
of
would have been a lesser film, in my
yeah, it
opinion.
would have been a lesser film because that's just there's just so much more to that um as a cultural moment than just a
Yeah.
one note takeaway. Not and I'm not like sitting here defending like Cosby or Weinstein or
You're over there, yeah. So Weinstein
or
didn't
any
do anything wrong. I mean, it was a fair trade. I think.
who
I
Wein
think it's a fair trade. Weinstein, molesting women with his little fucked up penis, and then
this
they
is
get
a
an
bit,
acting career.
right? You
Yeah,
fucking
that's what you're
scared me
saying.
for a second. This is a bit, right? You scared me for
Oh,
a
yeah,
second.
of course it's a fucking bit.
Well, because I was such in a sincere headspace that you kicked me in the teeth with it.
Yeah,
Scared me.
Weinstein did nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, no. Anyone would have. He was completely transparent and upfront. I
You
don't think.
opened the floodgates. We're gonna do the Deat, Potato, and Grant talk about Me Too next episode.
No, I just meant that I feel bad. I don't.
Grant, we did talk about Gamergate.
Yeah, let's do that.
That
So
was the
Zoe
game.
Quinn.
Oh yeah. Well, that's. I'm happy I paused because I was about to say I just feel bad. I feel like I've been talking over Potato.
Yeah,
Um,
you have anything to say, Potato, before we get into our final minutes? Nothing.
Yes, I like a lot of it was hard because the body. I'm a little pussy bitch when it comes to like horror. I was like, I understand everything, right? But
You're breaking up really
I
bad.
like how much.
it's just too much, is what you think. It's just you're kind of. It's not your cup of tea.
Shoot,
Own
we gotta
personal.
figure out what would be the
That's like
best.
my own like. What do you say?
I was like, we gotta figure
What
out.
do we say? I can't make out what you're saying, Potato.
I can't make out what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, but the point I had wanted to finish with Dennis Quaid is that I actually I respect the fact that she didn't try and go there. It wasn't about like rape culture. It was about the toxic image thing. I really respect her because I think a lot of other directors would have really fallen into that and it would have muddled the point of the satire. I respect the fact that she stayed very on point. She's like, I like this. This is
Yep.
what we're talking about. This is the point. I'm not going to go off in any other direction.
If it went to that, it would be not as good of a movie, honestly.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have fit. I just don't think it wasn't that type of movie. I don't think it would have made sense.
One thing I do think, I think this movie will possibly stand the test of time a lot better than most contemporary horror films.
Oh, I think so.
And
Yeah, I agree.
especially like a cultural conversation.
Mhm.
Which I think that's a thing I think about when going through the movie years, especially being part of like online film culture, is that I forget about so many movies that were like big for like a month, and then I was like, oh yeah, that was like a thing everyone was talking about. Everything Ever All at Once. That was like the biggest thing everyone was talking about. Now nobody fucking gives a shit. Nobody remembers it. I barely remember the movie. Just like, oh yeah,
I stand by the fact that I didn't think much of it at the time, and here I am, vindicated. Anyways,
you're vindicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you on that. I think the biggest compliment I can give this movie is that it is both a product of our time, and despite all of my personal thoughts, nuances, I've tried hopefully to fairly articulating this movie. People will talk about this in 10 years. People will talk about this in 15 years, and it'll be an excellent example of what the cultural zeitgeist was focused on at that time, picked up and put into a very good film that can stand the test of time as just a compelling piece of work.
So you're saying it's the movie of 2024?
it feels like it does feel like the movie of 2024, and it feels like kind of the movie that caught like that 2014 period all the way up to now.
Hmm.
Like this,
Yeah.
this feels kind of like a culminating point in a good way.
Yeah, I think in my overall ranking for the year, I'd put it under Joker 2 and which is under Furiosa. Furiosa is still my favorite. And then I put it over all the rest. I kind of want to see it again, but not anytime soon. Because I'm just like still kind of in shock.
I
It's like
have to think about what movies I've seen this year. I'm actually really bad at watching.
you've probably not seen it.
Well, I saw the sub.
You've seen Cool Cat versus Dirty Dog, the Virus
Oh,
Wars.
That's from
oh my
last year.
god, that was
Yeah,
awesome. I
that's
love that
legit.
movie.
I'll have to add that to my ranking 2023 list. Actually, that movie felt like limbo. I didn't even know it was made.
You've seen your own movie and you've seen this.
No,
This is probably the case.
no.
Not better than Joker 2.
I've seen Dune Part 2.
It's better than Doom Part 2, I'll say that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Wow, actually, you were throwing shade at me, but I think the only fucking movies I have seen from this year, are May the 12th Be With You, The American Society of Magical Negroes.
Did you actually watch that?
Yeah,
You saw
yeah.
that?
Like I when I caught the ending of it, I actually tried to fill in the rest of it that I missed, and then it was
It's the worst movie of the year.
yeah.
Oh, that was
It's
that was
so
the most
bad.
genuine dog shit movie of the year. That pissed me off.
I've seen Megapolis,
Oh
Inside
yeah.
Out 2, Love, Lisa Frankenstein.
Did you watch Lisa
Uh,
Frankenstein?
yeah, just with
Did you
some.
like it?
It was fun. It was cute. I think it kind of it fell a little short, but I'm just hoping that Zelda Williams keeps making films because it feels like one of those things where I think she'll grow into her own.
Yeah. When she's not working with Diablo Cody.
Yeah, her heart's entirely in it, and that's what a director needs. So even if like I don't personally like a film, I'm kind of like it's like a little too cute, for my taste. Like
Yeah,
I
you've
think
seen the Negro movie, Lisa Frankenstein do and Megalopolis, Inside Out 2, The
Oh my god.
Substance in your movie.
yeah.
When you go and watch Furiosa, man, maybe we should do a Furiosa show.
When you
Next.
force me to, I honestly have no interest. I no offense, but like my relationship with Mad Max really begins and ends with the original. That's my favorite movie, and I'm kind of like satisfied.
I mean,
I don't know if that's weird, but like the movie is so good in my mind that like I'm like completely apathetic to the larger franchise. I like Road Warrior; it's really good. I like Fury Road. I will rewatch the
I
film
think they're
from,
they're all masterpieces.
but like Mad Max in my mind's just Max. But also I won't dwell on that because like that's not what we're talking about.
I was gonna say wanted you to watch it because I think it in a way loops itself back around to the original at the end of Furiosa in terms of what it's talking about and also the fact that it has the exact same climax as the first Mad Max movie.
Want to know what I will say that the substance like what it does right is that any other director who made this would have made like Damsel.
I know we're not going to talk about Damsel, the Millie Bobby Brown film.
I tried watching that. I didn't even log it. I tried watching that.
Okay, well, let's start calling it quits here. Just because I don't want to edit a 9-hour podcast. Yeah, I remember we talked for like 3 hours once, and I had to cut it down to like 90.
That sucks. No, but I will say that if I had to follow my gut and say like, would this film grow on me, given that I didn't give it like the highest rating, or would I like think poorly of it? It will grow on me, I imagine.
I mean, I've only seen it today, so
yeah,
I don't know if it'll grow on me. Like something like Joker 2, like it's been 2 weeks since I've seen that, and I have not stopped thinking about that movie since I saw it.
Well, yeah, but you're like the biggest comic book guy in the world, so
but it's not like a comic. It's very very loose. It's not. Yeah, it's Well, it doesn't even have the DC logo at the beginning of it. It's very much its own thing. And I was just talking about it as a film and what it's about. It's not
It is so
really.
yeah. You can cut this out. You don't even have to include this. It's so fucking bizarre to me though. The fucking Millie Bobby Brown's like 2 years younger than me.
What?
Wait, she's 2 older than you? 2 years older than you?
Younger.
Oh,
Younger.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
so poor.
wait. I'm pretty sure I'm a year older than Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah, you are probably.
Okay, wait. Yeah, so that'd be 3.
Huh?
I think you're 2 years older than me, Grant.
Yeah. I'm a 02, man.
Okay. And that would make
Yeah,
her
cut
an
this part out.
05.
We don't need to talk about when I was born.
Yeah, goes for all right, Potato. What do you give the substance out of 10?
What I give a substance out of 10? I gave the substance 7 ass shots out of 10 globs. There you go.
That's a good point. And Grant, do you still
Actually,
stand by your ranking?
Can we end on a funny question?
Sure.
Is the director a lesbian? Like she was really into that.
Possibly, actually.
Like I don't think
Wait, what?
if she said she's like, I just wanted to recreate the male gaze, I'd be like, hot bullshit. You wanted to crawl in between those cheeks. What the fuck was all that?
Wait,
That's
There was a lot of ass in this movie. There was a lot, and it was
maybe
all
she is a
ass, too.
lesbian.
There was as much.
Oh,
There
no.
was a lot of man ass too. It was an ass heavy movie.
Oh yeah, that reverse shot of the old fucking goblin ass and then the hot guy's ass. That was great. That was fantastic.
The hot guy's ass. That's how you're describing it.
Yeah, Mir's a heterosexual man. I'm just well, I mean that's his point. That's his place is to be the hot guy
You
that's
kinda-
just fucking.
You kind of, I didn't even necessarily get hot guy vibes much. It's just like this is the big piece of fucking ass that I'm. Because he looked like a fucking cue ball, to be perfectly honest.
He did.
He did. He looked like he looked like a really hairy version of like the king from like the fucking the pharaoh from the fucking mummy movies. He just looked like a dumber jocker version of that.
Yeah.
Credit to that actor. I hope he's going places.
Yeah. go get yourself some good roles.
His fucking acting portfolio is his face.
Oh no, Potato. Guess
Potato.
what she directed? She directed this movie, The Revenge, and she had one project in between this.
I saw.
You saw it? Yeah, The
Yes.
Sandman. She directed an episode of The Sandman, the fucking awful Sandman TV show. Maybe we should do a Sandman episode. We should get Grant to read the first volume of The Sandman.
Yeah, we're definitely cutting this part out. Okay. Yeah. Love you all, guys. This has been an incredible podcast episode.
The greatest podcast episode. The Deat and Potato Talk has returned. It'll probably take me a while to edit this because I usually just have to edit out.
Potato Talks.
Yep. Next part, Potato Talks. And Potato has better service or internet or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway. Any last words? Someone say our final words. Potato.
Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac.
Okay, outro music now.